Robots Radio presents...
Today's chat is brought to you by, well, all of your support. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through Podbean's crowdfunding, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a patron of the FFC, please be sure to visit our website and click on the support link. Even a single dollar helps, and for those of you who are already patrons, thank you again for your generosity.
You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search. Focus that fire. And so we come together. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 11th, 2020 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the lore book, The Singular Exegete. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86, and Green is actually taking the week off again this week, and so we're going to jump right to our, actually we got two of them, guest co-hosts. We have our good friends ChattingMyth and HeyItsOrchid. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I had actually completely forgotten about the podcast until I saw the post earlier this week. And here's the reason why. Because last time I was on the show, we talked about Revelations. That was fun. That was long. That was fun. And then the week after, I set up with Green, like, hey, I'll be back later on in the year. And when we found out Beyond Light was supposed to come out in September, I messaged her and I was like, I lucked out. So this whole time I've been thinking, oh yeah, I'm not going to be back on Focus Fire Chat until Beyond Light comes out in November. So I'm happy to be here, but I was completely surprised.
Gotcha. Orchid, how are you doing?
I'm doing as well as can be expected.
Yeah, you're on fire.
I'm in the middle of forest fires, yeah. But no, yeah. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Is everybody pretty safe where you are, or ish?
I mean, safe is a real
relative term, I guess.
Yeah. I am safe as in I am not in the fire, but my work is next to the fire. As in, like, you can see it on the roof of where I work.
Yeah.
But because there's a freeway between us and the fire, we're like, it won't get us, so it's fine.
Because freeways, they're the best walls ever.
Yeah. No, where I live, I'm fine. It's just there's a lot of smoke and, there's ash everywhere. And so it was supposed to be 95 the other day and it was 70 because we haven't seen the sun in 4 days.
Wow.
So
yeah, someone posted a drone video that they took of, I think it was San Francisco, and they had laid over the Blade 2047 or 20 the Blade Runner track music, and it was like I watched it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, I don't actually know if this is real or if this is from the movie. Like I know it's not from the movie, but because of the tinge of everything, it was just my gosh.
It was like that the first day here, and we were relatively far away from the fires, so it was okay. It was like walking outside on Mars, and so we congratulated each other in the lab. We're like, welcome to Mars, like we're the first humans here, whatever. I said I was looking for some Freezy Hive boys, but
was that before or after you listened to Five Finger Death Punch?
That was today. Their music is super cute. I've never listened to it before until today. Guys, heavy metal is super cute. That's accurate. I had such a vibe today. Like, I was just like, this is cute. And the guy's like, what are you listening to? I'm like, Five Finger Death Punch.
Because that's the descriptor that totally goes with...
You know what? A lot of people have argued that is not the descriptor to use, but I'm the one describing it. I think it's cute.
Well, I know we've run through this a couple times with you, Josh, and Orchid. I think we tried to run through it one time with you, and completely that show didn't exist. So we'll just do
played
these.
Crucible instead.
We did play Crucible, which was interesting. But real quick, Josh, where can we find you more outside the show? I know you're pretty active in our Discord, but what about Twitter or anything like that?
So you can find me on Twitter at ChattingMyth. I've been lurking a lot in the Discords recently because life stuff. But Twitter's probably the quickest way to get to me.
Awesome. What about you, Orchid? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at HeyItsOrchid. You can find me on Twitch at HeyItsOrchid. And I stream like 4 or 5 days a week. So
if you follow her on Twitter, be warned, there will be otters.
There will be so many otters.
There will be otters.
No apologies. Zero.
Well, so like Orchid, just real quick, what? I mean, you're, for those who do not know you, which that shouldn't exist, but for those who don't know, you're part of the Guardians of Lore podcast.
I am.
So you do other stuff with game lore. So
yes.
when did actually that start for you? When did you get to become? When did you get interested in game lore specifically?
In game lore. So in D1, because they made game lore really hard to find, I was like, screw this, I'm not going to read it. I'm going home. I just wanted to do some pew pew shoots. So when D2 came out, I joined several different clans. The clan that I had on PlayStation, I moved to Xbox for D2, so didn't have any of the same friends that I played with. So I made all new friends. Eventually joined a clan with Elamist and Hyben and Mrs. Hyben much later. But the three of us were talking about lore. The two of them were like, oh, we should probably, do a weekly talk for the Discord server of lore. And I was like, can you guys record that so I can listen to it at work? Because I'm not available when you guys want to talk about it. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, can I download it like a podcast? Okay. So that happened.
And then you became part of the podcast.
I am the mother of the podcast, and then thusly joined the podcast in episode 50 for their kind of get to know the hosts 1 year kind of anniversary episode. And instead they're like surreptitiously put in a question like, why aren't you a part of the cast yet? And I'm like, because you didn't ask me. I don't know. What do you want me to say? So I kind of joined, and now I derail the conversation all the time. And I've made it a very lewd, uncoordinated podcast. So
we're very proud. Talk about we're very proud of you. We're very proud of you for that.
Thank you. I try.
Josh, real quick, I know you and I kind of chatted about this a little bit, but you have some exposure to like translation analysis of languages, I think would be safe to say. so yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take that compliment.
Yeah, no, I mean, like it's kind of one of the things that we know. But what about like what makes this particular like aspect within this lore book? Because it is kind of an in-game translation process. Is that something that how accurately did they portray? Do you think? Like the musings of Eris on her connection, because we'll get into logographic communication, which is its own nightmare in of itself. But like how is, I don't even know what I'm asking.
I'll be honest. I don't really know how to answer that because this lore book really, it seems like we're reading two different things. There's sort of there's the frame narrative, which is we're getting these messages and Eris is interpreting them as best as she can interpret them, and then we have Eris's story, which I guess is the B plot to that. But I mean, I don't know. Interpretation's hard. One of the lore books that I love for this reason, I think it's Awoken of the Reef, where Riven has Riven speaking, but a lot of what he's saying, they're bracketed words when you read them, and basically Riven is reinterpreting that word and giving it to us in a way where, she's controlling the narrative. And that's really interesting. And it, I mean, like you said, for those who don't know, like, I studied ancient Greek, I studied ancient Latin in college. That was part of my bachelor's. And interpretation's hard. Like, interpretation in Latin really kind of sucks because Latin has a very limited vocabulary, and
there's
one
a
word
reason
can
that
mean,
it's the saying goes, "It's all Greek to me."
Yeah, so, like, I mean, at some point, like, this book is basically Eris's interpretation, and I think at some cases she does a really interesting job, and then there's other points where I don't know how much of what she's relaying to us is her own personal information, her own personal feelings, rather.
Yeah, and I know we'll probably get into that, especially when we talk a little bit about logographics, because logographics are a very interesting phenomenon, I guess would be the best term for them. Because, I mean, especially for those of us who are predominantly English speakers, it turns everything that we are used to when it comes to written language kind of on its head. It's really kind of interesting to kind of get around that, or to kind of think about it that way. But before we jump into that real quick, I'm going to jump back over to Orchid. What's your class that you primarily play?
I'm a warlock with a titan on the inside. I'm a warlock that tries to punch everything. If I could shoulder charge as a warlock, I would.
So you're a fan of Fellwinter?
Yes, very much so. I'm really jelly of Fellwinter because if I could wear his stupid helmet, I want to be able to shoulder charge people. It's the one thing I want.
Chat's simplifying it. She's a titan.
Yeah, she's a titan. I'm a titan on the inside. I'm a warlock on the outside.
So a paladin.
Like a weird Oreo cookie.
Okay.
The good stuff is on the inside.
Josh, what about you, Josh?
Shut up. I'm being good.
I mean, for me, I'm a hunter through and through. I mean, look,
Correct answer.
I very much ascribe to what Tefty Tef says when he's playing his classes. The hunters for business, titans for fun. I have a warlock too because I need it to experience all three parts. And that's how I treat it. I'm like, hunters for business. I'm gonna get on my hunter. Hunter's my main. I'm gonna enjoy it. Titan is when I just want to be brainless in the Crucible and somehow rack up like 25 plus kills. And then I have my warlock that I have to keep up to date.
Chad says that it sounds like you're describing a mullet. Oh man. But yeah, okay, so that's kind of the end of our kind of getting to know us. So we're going to jump real quick into a very quick ad break, and then we're going to come back. Or actually, before I forget, because Green normally does this for me, so I don't know, or I'm not used to the pacing here. Real quick, I do have one big announcement, and Orchid even was very nice and called it out for me in the show notes, and I nearly forgot it anyways, because that's how discombobulated I am. Real quick, earlier today, I had put out a update over on the website for the Lore Network, and I just wanted to also explain a little bit here on the podcast for anyone who either doesn't get on Twitter or doesn't use the website, which both of those, you probably won't care. But anyways, basically what we're doing is we are going to kind of move away from the current website layout, and we're going to try out Reddit as a means to distributing posts and interacting with everybody. So what it's going to be is for the next couple weeks, really, just view it as like a trial run. We're going to try it out. We're going to see how it works. I get the sense that Reddit will make it a little bit easier for everyone to stay in touch, because Reddit has a format that is much more conducive to conversation than a website. It's easier to comment on it. It's easier to interact with the authors of each individual thread instead of post. So we created our own subreddit. The subreddit is The Lore Network, all one word. I have the link to that in the post on the website. And then if the trial run actually is met with pretty good success, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to redirect our URLs to go to the subreddit. So you won't even really have to worry about anything. I'm going to try to make it as painless as possible for everyone. But really, to kind of open it up a little bit, what that means is, for the most part, nothing really. It's going to just be a little bit slightly aesthetic change for the people who see our post. Articles are basically going to be put in the same way that articles are put individually on the website. We're going to create them individually as threads on the subreddit. Again, comments, upvotes, all that is much more native to Reddit, so it's a little bit easier to kind of encourage that interactivity. We also, on the Reddit page, I've gone ahead and created every one of the content creators who's already a member of the Lore Network. I've gone ahead and created a dedicated wiki profile page for them. In the Reddit, there is a link at the very top that says wiki. Click on that, and then you will see a list of all the members and their own pages. As we get kind of more used to that format, I've already kind of put a word out to the member content creators, as if they have special links like sponsor links, specific team member links for social media, because like Green and I have our own Twitter accounts as well as Focus Fire. So on our wiki page, I've gone ahead and I've linked all the unique stuff, so it's all in the same place. It's all in one place. The other nice thing is about the wiki is eventually that's actually going to allow for a much more streamlined build out of things like the Destiny Dialogue project that I was trying to figure out, because the wiki is just really, it's pretty bare bones as far as a wiki goes, but it's actually really easy to customize the layout and linking of those different pages to each other. So it's really just going to hopefully encourage the build out of that. But as with everything else, please feel free to message myself or Green or just the general group box at focusfirechat@gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever, we're always happy to hear the feedback of that. But yeah, that's the special announcement. So let's jump into an ad break real quick, and then we'll be right back.
Should introduce myself. I'm Corin Black, a humble half-demon, and folks around Baltimore call me the Devil's Runt. Here we go, finally moving again.
How do you feel about methamphetamines? Devil's blood don't make you a devil.
Under the Shroud. Fantasy, noir, and horror from Baltimore's sin-soaked streets. Find creator Ian Humphrey on Twitter at fictionalian.
Okay, so let's jump into just like a basic, like what we've kind of started telling the cocktail knowledge of it. So this lore book, what is it? What is this lore book? It was a book that was introduced in the season of Arrival. So this season we got it. We were kind of talking about this before we started recording. The week of this recording would have been the last entry because of the deferment of the season. Though we have been denied the last entry in game, I think would be the best way to say that. It basically got locked up. The reason why is because every week we had a weekly interference mission, and we're going to probably talk about that, especially within the advanced session, because it's got its own component within the lore of the actual book as well. But at its core, this is a collection of reports from Eris to the Vanguard, but it is also a collection of her personal notes and reflections. And then if you look at the transcripts for the missions themselves, there's actually another message that's being sent to the Guardian. So we have a three-layered, if you will, collection here. And these are all in connection and all concerning messages received from the pyramid ship that appeared over Io. So when you take all of these different three levels of communications, you get a pretty good image of what Eris is thinking about this. This is also connected to the False Idols lore record, which was back, I believe, at the beginning of the season, in which we see Nokris actually show up and pledge himself to Savathun. And because the connection there is basically Nokris and Savathun discuss how to disrupt the communications between the pyramids and the Guardians. So basically that ties into the quest or the missions as well. We'll kind of talk about that just a little bit. As far as like the entries composition, Josh, I know you had mentioned this a little bit already, but there's basically three major layers. There's the VanNet encrypted routers reports, and that's the one that goes basically directly to Zavala. These are the messages to the Vanguard. This is the, bop, 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 bullet point list, very professional of what. I find that funny because there's one week that she actually declines to send a message to the Vanguard. And it's very interesting. The other half that we find within the lore book are the personal thoughts and almost a diary of Eris as she proceeds through the interpretation of the various logographic messages. Keep in mind that word we've kind of mentioned it a couple times. We're going to come back to it in just a second. Of interest for me, at least, the other thing that was kind of called out with the personal thoughts and diary was the actual components that were used to write them. The vast majority of them are written on hive leather because, Eris, she loves skinning a thrall. And it was inscribed with either a shard of Ionian stone or a knife. But the very fun one was the knotted codex of hive guts, because you got to use the whole hive, I guess. I don't know that one. And then the last one was a shard of quartz that she actually inscribed on with a surgical stylus, which was interesting to me because it was just simply everything else was like you could actually kind of put it in a book, and then quartz and hive guts. I can't imagine what that book looks like. That's a kind of an interesting thing. So, and then finally, like we had mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, the expressed opinions to the Guardians, which is the very short blurb that you have from Eris at the completion of the interference mission. So I mentioned the word logographic. We've kind of tossed that around a little bit, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Josh to kind of explain to us logographic. What's that term? What does that term mean?
Thanks to our handy dandy show notes. So logographic, from the Greek logos and graphos. Grapso. To write. I draw. I write. Yeah. Okay. So a logogram in a written language is a written character that represents a word or a morpheme. And the first thing I thought of was the Cairo, which that's other than like Chinese characters or Japanese characters. And I have a friend who's going to get mad at me if I get this wrong. In kanji, I don't remember if it's kanji or katakana. But it's basically a character that represents a word. Like a word, an idea. So like the Cairo. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Orchid.
You're welcome. I'm a weeb, so I know these things.
Okay, cool. So like the Cairo is basically the symbol for Christ. It is literally a Greek chi interfused with a Greek rho. To continue. So in English, as written language, uses a phonologic writing, which is basically the words are written as they sound, right? Mm-hmm. That's
Symbols correspond to sounds, and then we smush them together to create words or the morphemes.
So that's the basic contrast between logographic and phonologic writing script.
And so, like, the thing and the reason why this is a kind of a big deal is because Eris actually calls this out in one of the earlier entries, because logographic communication is much more metaphorical. It's something that there's a lot of it's very, very dependent on the context clues that are around the communication. Whereas with like a phonologic writing, if you put the word, I mean, like there's a few words that they can be used multiple places, or at least phonetically they sound similar, like here and here. If you hear something with your ears, you're not necessarily here, as in location. It sounds the same, but when you look at the writing, it's actually spelled differently. That's not the case. English is really good at just completely screwing up the rules of everything. It doesn't follow its own rules, and it's really fun for those who, yeah. Anyways, for the most part, a phonological communication is able to kind of transcend context and kind of be, in a way, more specific. Whereas a logographic communication, chat English has rules? No, it doesn't. There are no rules. In a logographic communication, you guys were talking about kanji. The one that always stands out to me when you talk about kanji is like the word for house is literally a little picture of a house. Like it's just like, there's things that you have to understand the culture and the context in which that particular almost a hieroglyph character was created in order for you to fully translate it, which is why it's interesting in here because it's Eris, who is a human, or not but human. She's from humanity. I don't take that to me that she is human. I'm not making a comment on that, but she is from humanity's culture, and she is trying to translate something that is extremely alien. It's not just like, we kind of talked about this last week with the Vex, but it's like, it's not like she's trying to translate the Hive runes. Like Hive runes are slightly logographic as well, but there's a culture that is similar enough to humanity that we can kind of bridge that context difference. Whereas with this one, because it's literally from the darkness itself, we have no grounds in which to base a lot of our translations of it. And so when Eris calls out the fact that it is a logographic communication and it is very metaphorical, it's also pointing out the fact that even Eris is realizing that she is not infallible in her translations, which is actually really refreshing to read, that the character is being pretty upfront about, hey, here's my bias. Don't take everything I say worth, 100%. Orchid, did I miss anything?
No, I think except that I would say she's, ancient human.
You're right.
Now.
Oh, okay.
Now Hive. I nope, can't say that on this podcast.
So I was just thinking about this. Not that I'm trying to sidetrack this early. It's too early to do this. The fallen houses, I know those are sigils, and yet the House of Devils looks like a devil. Mm-hmm. The House of Kings looks like a throne. The House of Wolves looks like a wolf.
I mean, but isn't that also kind of a sigil in and of itself is kind of...
Well, like okay, so like
a coat of
again,
arms
first thing in my
be...
head. Yeah. So like I'm thinking of, like a Song of Ice and Fire. Like sure, House Stark, it's a gray wolf on a on a white running field. Ooh, I just read that and I'm gonna mess that up. So like, yeah, sure, but we also, or at least I'm pretty sure we know that the fallen written language looks similar to the sigils. Like that's sort of my question. Like, is that not just a sigil, but is that like the actual word?
Yeah, that's kind of what Veru just brought up in chat. He says, we know through the shadows of your lore that Hive language is actually not native to the Hive, but if their runes are something they came up with, is this language Eris encounters still a reference to the spoken language of the Hive? Like, could this have been the actual, like, what the Hive were trying to transcribe into something? That's definitely an interesting thought, because there was, I think someone, I can't remember, I saw up in chat earlier, someone made the comment, if if this was meant to be read kind of in parallel to Unveiling as well, like because of the connection again there. So that's a definitely something I'm gonna take away. And Dante, I'm gonna blame you for my lack of sleep again. First it was dark, now he's got me chasing down a freaking logographic translation of Hive runes. But before I get too far down that one, real quick, the characters that are mentioned within the lore book, especially, we have obviously Eris. She is the primary driver, narrative, whatever term you want to use for that. Zavala is also mentioned, if not just because he is the receiver of the Vanguard reports. He actually does make an appearance on one entry, but for the most part, Zavala is the intended recipient. We have a Guardian who goes by the name of Anina, who is part of the subplot of the entries. She is tasked with finding that pesky pineapple. Which I love. She's that.
Like a grad student for a researcher.
Well, that's what she presents herself as. She is not quite that.
No, but she thinks she is. And I don't want to take that away from her.
Fair enough. She just wants to have pineapple for her pizza. I don't know what's the problem here.
Everything with that sentence is a problem.
We also have an unknown ghost, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit there, who kind of pops up and is spying on things. And then actually really randomly and kind of interestingly, we have a mention of Callus's daughter, Kyatil. So I find that interesting because up until now, Kyatil is the only one who was on Callus's hit list that we did not have a firm confirmation had been killed. And apparently she's still around. I think we had wasn't there a machine gun earlier?
We learned about her in the Fourth Horseman.
Right. Well, I mean, like we learned about her back with a long time. But I mean, this is again another kind of nod to she's making moves back
Heir
on. Mm-hmm. Oh, heir apparent. Thank you. Thank you, Black Flag and Orchid. This is kind of a call out. Eris makes a comment about how she could be making a power play back in the Empire while Callus is kind of trying to seduce the Guardians, I think would be the PG word for what he is trying to do.
Sweetmeats are involved.
Where's Green when we need her?
Yeah.
For the shutter.
Sweetmeats and planet wine. Ew. Wine made of planets. Gross. I don't want that.
Callus just wants a friend. That's sure. Let's go with that one.
Callus is a thick boy. I'm into it. Yep.
No.
Yep.
A life partner.
Yeah.
So, oh, geez. All right. So real quick, to kind of jump into the weekly process here. So this is all wrapped into the means to an end quest. And there's basically 3 steps. The third step actually has 3 alternate variety or 3 options depending on which week you're in. They rotate. I won't get to that in just a second. The first step is barrier to entry. This is basically when we have to go and do the new public event, the contact public event, and that is either on Io or Titan. And basically the explanation that we get from the event is we are being called to contain spreading darkness through the completion of the contact public event. Ghost, within the flavor text of the actual mission item, says that the Drifter wouldn't have agreed to help without an ulterior motive. We should keep an eye on him and his machine, because the ramshackle Cryptarch. God, I love the random voice lines on the Umbral decoder.
Yeah.
It's like Rahul, except better.
It's true. I would rather go to the trash can than Rahul every day.
Yum 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 yum. So the second step after, so you basically, to do this, you have like the little meter, and then you complete, however many runs of the contact public event, depending on if you activate the heroic mode or don't activate the heroic mode, how far away or how far through this event you get. It'll fill up the meter different. You fill up to 100%, it ticks off to the second one, or the second step. The second step is referred to as force. And this is basically the description that we get is a challenge is issued to the strong. And the flavor text is actually from an unknown origin. And the quote is, "Show your strength or be broken by those who will." And what we're called to do is we're called to collect umbral traces through a series of activities. Depending on the week, it seems to rotate predominantly between Gambit and Crucible. I think also I don't pay attention to the other things because those are the only two that I can do. I know there's
also Nightmare
Heroic,
Hunts.
Nightmare Hunts. There's Heroic Adventures and Menagerie.
Menagerie, that was the other one. Yeah, I don't go near that with a 50-foot pole. Anyways, once you
don't have any sweet meats.
Anyways, once you get done with that step, it's the same thing. It's a gauge. You have to collect like the umbral traces. You get then once you have that completed, you get the last step, which is called perseverance. And this is one of my favorite flavor texts for this episode. Is going to be, if that krill hag wants the cradle, she'll have to pry it from our cold, dead hands. Ah, Eris. Always so good with words. So this is the one that actually I kind of mentioned. It rotates through 3 different versions. There is the first version that we came encounter with is called the ritual encounter. This is the one where you run in and there's 2 islands off to the side and you have to defeat the witches and then stand on the plate. So you basically disperse the rituals by standing on the plate, which is very akin to Crota's End, is the thing that it always reminds me of. And then once you disperse all 3 rituals, it opens up a gate, and then you are confronted with a giant shrieker ball, which is Savathun's Witness. And so you kill that thing, and then it kills you because it always kills you right after you kill it, and then you jump through your portal and you get your lore entry. The second week is what's referred to as the relic encounter, and in this one we have to defeat multiple figures that are titled Envoys of Savathun, and then in between each stage we have to cross a bridge. There's 3 battles, again number 3, and then once you defeat the last set of envoys, you are then presented again with the Savathun's Witness, and you are blown up, and then go get your lore entry. And then finally is the crystal encounter. I'm just going to run through these real quick because they're just, Crystal encounter is basically almost a combination of the 2 before. You have to do battle with multiple envoys. Usually it's I want to say it's 2 envoys for every crystal. And then they are linked to a crystal. So basically as long as the envoys are alive, the crystal is immune to damage. You kill both the envoys. It opens the crystal up to damage, destroy the crystal, rinse and repeat. You destroy 3 crystals, it opens the gate, you go and you blow up Savathun's Witness, and then this one actually also has the absolutely terrifying teleporting knight that's called the Shifting Blade. He's one of the guys from, remind me of Alec Hull, but I think in Destiny 2, the other time that we see Guardian, or a knight like this would be
the Haunted Forest.
Yeah, well, the Haunted Forest, and then also what's the
Reckoning.
That's what it was. Yeah, the Reckoning. Black Flag's comment calling out. Yeah, I guess that's true because that would be interesting. An interesting point that Black Flag's bringing up is that each encounter is based on a location from the Dreadnought. It's an interesting thing. And I'm also being corrected that there apparently is a science to killing the Savathun's Witness before it kills you. I don't believe it. Anyways, it's lies. And then basically once you get the third, and that's each week, so you go Ritual, Relic, Crystal, and then at the 4th week you go back up to Ritual, Relic, Crystal. And then you just run through an issue. There is theoretically a 4th one. We haven't encountered it just yet, but it'll be interesting to see which one that one is. I guess that's kind of the meat and the skeleton of the whole thing. I'm going to think we'll take a quick little ad break here, and then we can jump into a really, really high level look at the 13 entries that we've had. There's actually 14 entries, but I would know we've gotten 13 for sure. So we'll take a quick ad break and be right back.
Do you like adventure?
Yeah.
Do you like laughing?
Yeah.
Would you like to listen to a group of people you don't know play D&D and reference retro pop culture you vaguely remember? Excellent. You're going to love Committee Quest. We play D&D in the world of Amarin. We use adventure modules and supplements made by people in the community. We also have a sweet synthwave backing track. Come and join us on our adventure. Volume 1 has been completed. Volume 2 coming the end of January. You can find us on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Okay. Orchid, Josh, do either of you want to dive into these entrees? Gosh, man, wow. I'm hungry, apparently. All right, so real quick, now that I got this pulled up. The first entry is Protected. Really quick here. It's just basically an introduction to the whole thing. We get the personal notes here that I believe this is where she starts looking at ways to learn how to cook. I actually really like the subplot of these almost more than the translation pieces, because Eris is an interesting individual. I will say that. She does mention, if you'll remember from when we talked about Revelation, there was the character of Quang Zhan. Quang Zhan?
Do you want me to pronounce it for you?
Yeah, do it.
Quang Shin?
That one. I was completely off.
Yeah.
KX.
Quang Shin.
Shin. Okay.
Shin.
But Eris is aware of this character. And Eris is aware of basically the journal that we got from the collector's edition is basically confirmed that Eris has seen it and read it. So I thought that was an interesting little callback there. No dancing. I do not want to pronounce your crazy German words.
Nope.
Let's see. She decides that she is going to make a wok so that she can try to make fried rice. The next entry is Eggshell. Basically, this one is Eris talking about how by using this logograph, it's a good sign because it shows that the darkness is trying to entice us with things instead of just outright destroying us. In the more interesting component, she has met a challenge with her wok. Her wok is on fire.
You know what? Seasoning woks are hard. I'm going to let Eris have this one.
I just love the ending of, my wok is on fire.
Like, seriously, like, her struggles trying to make fried freaking rice for the entirety of this lore book is my favorite thing about this lore book.
The best part is this just reminds me of, like, a Monty Python thing, because it
really does.
She's scribing this on hive leather, and it's like, you could just, the cave of where,
yeah.
Like, it's just... Oh, the next one is White. And to call out here real quick for those who are reading along in chat with us, VIP 2014, that is the Guardian. That's our character. So again, she's kind of mentioning it's in her personal notes. She calls out that it's not talking about like white as in a pure white. It's kind of something that's not, it's just the same.
It's sterile.
Yeah.
And this, boring.
Yeah. And then she has to clean her wok. So it burned like hive blood.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is also when we are introduced to Anina, and Eris gets mad at her and snaps at her to bring her a pineapple because she wants to try a pineapple with her fried rice.
I get the Titan reference, but just why a pineapple? I just don't get it.
It was one of the earlier entries. I'm trying to find it real quick, but she was talking about something, and she was going through a list of ingredients. And
it was
she was
the first.
Was it the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tonight I cook fried rice. Rice and raisins will come from my stores. The recipe calls for pineapple? Is this a joke? A pine-flavored apple?
Why do people not know that pineapples and dragonflies existed?
But kiwi
I'm still
cucumbers
fascinated by the dragonfly ornament, where they're like, a dragonfly? How does that work? Couldn't be. No.
But dragons are cool.
Dragons are super cool.
The fourth one is cusp. And this Eris translates as a threat. She then goes on to talk about kind of the implication is that it is a repeated mistake. She talks about the collapse and how the darkness is trying to present this idea that the darkness is not our enemy, it is only the traveler's enemy, which is an interesting thing because she calls out, why is it trying to go around us? You know, it's an interesting concept there. She also starts regretting sending Anina away because I think at this point her walk is completely gone. Oh, because she needs a taster. That's what she needs, someone to tell her if it actually tastes.
Yeah.
This one, the fifth one is gift, and this is the one that she does not send a report to Zavala. The point of note here that I would like to make is also that this is the week that Zavala actually shows up and visits Eris. So that could be why she doesn't send a report to him. This is also the week that if you're standing in the wrong place, you get killed.
You get
very, very violently.
It's very funny because that happened to me when I did it.
Oh my gosh, I just cracked up. But this is also the week that we get the ruinous effigy from Eris. So this is the gift, basically, that is referenced here. The following week after that is contrast. And this is the one where I think, Josh, you had mentioned the darkness presenting itself as like a part of a natural cycle. And like, you know, is that evil? Is that not? Eris goes and kind of takes that and says, you know, is winter evil? No, it's not. Winter's not evil, but it's still dangerous. It's still something that can cause evil. It can cause destruction if you aren't careful and prepare for it.
That was a really good metaphor that she had there, too.
Oh, God, I love it. I love
that. Was one of those, like, when I'm reading most of the other lore entries and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, or I mean, especially when I was when I was listening to it, when I was listening to the audio files, and like that metaphor hits and I'm like, whoa, that is telling. I mean, it works. It was great.
It does. I love, because I also love how she navigates it into a really good segue for what we're going to see with stasis. Not only is it winter and ice, but it's also, you know, survival in winter requires wintercraft. Survival in darkness requires a new idea of good and evil. And so it's like Eris is kind of opening the door for that. I kind of made a comment that it's the morality debate concerning the use of darkness by the Guardians. The next one... yes?
I really like, actually, towards the beginning of the reading, she talks about the jaded Guardians. Mm-hmm. The strangers to the true lots who claim that the traveler has ulterior motives and the darkness is a natural force. They worship gray. For them, the line between right and wrong is as fine as silk and just as easy to cut. And I think a lot of us Guardians are being called out there because we flippantly say, oh yeah, you know, like travelers got some evil motives, like ghosts, we can't trust them. I mean, like, I have to admit first that I'm one of those Guardians. Like, I don't trust the traveler. I don't trust the ghosts because we don't know. It just showed up one day and gave us powers and guns and told us to go shoot the things, like, and took away our memories. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff, and it made us these like walking soldiers for it. And so we don't know really like what is our purpose. And I know Osiris goes into that a lot in his own books, but like I think this is her calling out to all the Guardians who really do believe that, because we just don't know.
And keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that in a couple entries, actually. But real quick, yes, which like I'm like, all right, what's this one? And I love how she
Yes.
like even she's like, nothing meaningful is here. Like,
Nope.
perhaps I have misinterpreted the results. I love that. I'm like, whatever. This is also when Anina returns. She confirms that pineapples are real, and she is what was it? I will not give up my work, not until I have fried rice with pineapple and raisins. Not until I know exactly what is coming. Obviously winter, right?
I love how she gets the pineapple in an arcology garden on Titan.
Yep.
And then Eris expounds into she is a power, this guardian. Because she has found the pineapple.
Clearly, Eris never found that scannable right above that little ceiling area. Whereas somebody is also like, pineapples. Pineapples.
Our ghosts are like pineapples? Like what?
Pineapples. What are these pineapples and how do I grow them?
Oh man. Anyways, the next one is Unborn. This one is basically a connection to the Books of Sorrow, to the shadows of your lore, unveil fragments. It's basically, the Traveler is a false creator, blah 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 blah. And even Eris kind of calls out like, how Gnostic, blah blah blah, was my rebirth in evil. But then she talks about how her ghost, if we are evil, then why did her ghost sacrifice herself to save Eris? She goes on and she actually makes, I like this one. She says, I do fear immortality without choice. I would not want to go on as a prisoner in vexed glass or a spirit trapped in the sea of screams. Cough, cough. Toland. After that, this comes back to what Orchid, you were just talking about as to the possible reasons why guardians do not have memories of their first life. And this is the entry called Purity. She takes on the idea that some guardians have of being taken by the light, or light taken. She says that her opinion of it is that it's a popular heresy because we do not lose the capacity to choose. We make our own fate. Whereas the taken don't have their own will. Their will really is not their own. And she goes on to kind of expound on that within her personal notes. She talks about how, like, as a student of the Hive lore, she remembers talking about the final shape and all that. Update, Anina found pineapple seeds. So she wants her to grow them.
That's the most important part, the pineapple seeds.
Most important part.
Not discussing like the nature of like the guardians being quote unquote like not light taken, but
pineapple seeds.
Who was it in chat? Triggerblade says Purity take and retain their memories. We don't.
I would say that some take and retain their memories. I think because I think that I don't know. Like I keep going back and forth on that one.
Well, do we know of any quote-unquote conscious taken other than Riven, which is kind of cheating?
Right.
Riven cheats.
Well, we have...
And Coria?
Coria, well, she was only half taken. Because it was called out that she was only taken enough to control her, but not to eradicate her will. Now, there are major taken component or taken opponents from D1 that did have some independence. There's the really annoying one from the Prison of Elders that Psylocke. No, not Psylocke.
No, that's not it.
God, he yelled it every
Psylocke the Defiler.
Yeah, the Defiler. God, that one. It's but the thing is like what my point there is that I don't know if that's every taken, because the intent that I kind of got was that like the rank and file taken were kind of wiped clean and they're just pawns on the chessboard. Malak kept his memories and his personality. So I know there are named taken, but there are not. But like the rank and file, we don't have really strong confirmation that they necessarily remember their past. Not saying that it's not possible, because we just don't have one way or the other. Oh, real quick in chat. No, we do not have any record of any taken humans. There is no record in the lore or in-game that we have. However, yep, Trigger, we do have some Tetuans who were taken, and those are awoken. So we'll see. We'll see. They were also the ones that we were able to untake, which was a very weird process. But real quick, jump to the next one. Conviction. Conviction is called out as being connected to the later entry. So this is entry 10. Eris refers to entry 12. She says that there's a connection to the camouflage logograph. Interestingly enough here, this is where Eris kind of comes to the defense of Zavala's character and his choices. She is very much a supporter of Zavala and his choices with the regards to how he is handling things. She says that he is not a marionette. He is a strategist. His guardians are all tacticians. But and so they love when some grand new threat appears, but when it is defeated, they become restless, and they use their bold victories as proof that Zavala is a timid leader. But he is not swayed by the hot-blooded elite. He fears victory disease. So it's a really, actually, I really like this one as well. Then jumping to the most important aspect, because I know Orchid was really dying to know about this. Inanna returned with the pineapple seeds.
Yes.
However, Io does not support agriculture.
It does not.
So she had to make up her own loam or her own soil to plant them in.
I have so many things to say about that. That's okay. I'll refrain.
I will plant the pineapple seeds in this little garden. I hope their roots are not too big.
Oh,
Eris. That brings us to Petulant. Petulant is I can't help but read this as a jab at the lore community, most notably Matt and Mylan, for the theories of Eris being evil. Because that's pretty much what it's all about. Their channels are full of open speculation about me. Is she a hapless lackey of Queen Mara, an ancient proto-Hive matron? And why does she offer to trade a bag of quartz chip data stores for a pound of breadfruit?
Honestly, when I read this, I heard it in Matt's voice in my head. And it's not because I listen to him every day when I'm at work when he's streaming. And so I know his voice very well at this point. But yeah, I definitely, because of his obsession with is she, secretly evil. It just, yeah.
I think I was just more annoyed that Teox got brought up again. I'm just like, God, can we just not?
We're not gonna ever get rid of it.
I know it's gonna be like by Lightfall when that comes out in 2 years. It's gonna be like, oh, look at that! It's a
cryopod, huh?
It's a fallen. His name is Nezrak's best friend. No, Nezrak's back. God, Nezrak's back.
If that's not on a cryopod, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Hey, I was already annoyed in D1 when we had that Dreadnought map, and there was this big crystalline structure right in the middle of it, and there was clearly like a wizard in there. And I'm like, is that Teox?
No. Okay, so jumping to the next one, camouflage. Camouflage is what?
You did forget that Eris is lonely.
Yes.
That's pretty important.
Because everyone thinks she's evil and crazy for trading for breadfruit.
Mm-hmm.
Camouflage is actually when Eris kind of starts going off into the deep end a little bit with the paranoia. She begins suspecting betrayals. This is also when she catches the little ghost, I think. Oh, no. She already caught the ghost. This is when she starts beginning to suspect Anina as being someone who is spying on her. Because she starts asking, she wonders if the ghost is actually Anina's. In other news, the pineapples have already blossomed. They delight her because they're little purple thistles. That brings us to falling. This is another kind of comment from Eris about another threat of imminent disaster. She says, "You declared a new golden age and our enemy declares a second collapse." She finds that alarming that because they imply that it's already in motion. She calls out that she should reach out to Osiris and Ikora or even Mara, or even, I love this, I should conjure wretched Tolan from the Sea of Screams and wring the truth from him. But would I be believed? There goes old Eris, they will say, howling about fingertips and revenge again. She is lonely, so she prophesizes doom. So she's feeling the pressure, but then also kind of thinking that people will ignore her. And then finally, the contact entry, which would have been this one. This is the 14th entry. This is the one that was going to be this week. She calls out that we are in an arms race. Basically the enemies are turning to the darkness, the Cabal and the Fallen. This is where she mentions Callus and his daughter. She says the remaining Cabal will either join Callus's death cult or seek his daughter Kyautl. And the Fallen, we have driven them to the edge of survival, turned them against each other. And so, yeah, she says, by pushing them from the light, we have groomed more supplicants for the darkness. She also confronts Anina, and she finds out that Anina is basically one of the new Dredgens, and she is trying to learn the ways of the darkness to get ahead in Gambit. Dun, dun, dun. And
she wants to pick up those moats after killing Guardians on the other side.
Mm-hmm. She also starts worrying that her pineapples are poisonous, and she is no longer hungry.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't put them on pizza.
But, so, I mean, that's a really, really, really quick run-through of, like, a summary of them. And I think the advanced session, we can kind of dig into the difference between the communication and the different levels of communication. I think would be a good way to run through those.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to turn it over to you guys real quick for intro session shout-outs. Orchid, you want to go first?
The shout out to my own podcast, because I'm here, I'm going to plug it. You can listen to Guardians of Lore every week, wherever you want to find podcasts. This current week, as of the recording, we are doing Stolen Intelligence Part 1 and 2. And then we'll also be doing the singular Exegete. Exegete? Is that how you say it?
I think so.
I'm assuming. Sure. That one, the one that we're doing right now. And we'll also be doing what is it? The one where Brother Vance tears out someone's eyeballs with his thumb. That cool one. Regress. Yeah, we're going to do that one too. So you can look forward to those. And yeah, so please, you can follow us at Guardians_Lore on Twitter. You can follow me at HeyItsOrchid. And all of our lovely hosts. You can follow me anyway if you want to see a bunch of otters.
Otters. Josh, what about you?
I mean, shout out to you guys, because, you guys are willing to always bring me back, and I seem to never know if I'm going to be up until 2 or 3 a.m. every time I'm here, because Revelations was long that time. That was I think you and I just sped through a couple entries at one point. But no, yeah, shout out to you guys for always being willing to bring me on.
Definitely. Real quick, thank you, Orchid.
You're welcome. Doing your job for you.
That's Green's job. See, it's listed under Green's name.
Yeah, I could do that part.
Orchid is correcting my show notes for me. Just want to give a big shout out to you both for helping me this week get through these 2 episodes. Next week we are going to have Dwyer on, and we're going to be talking about just basically a general update on the darkness, which should be an interesting conversation, to say the least. Other than that, just really, again, let us know what your thoughts are on the new format of the articles over on the subreddit. That is, again, the subreddit is The Lore Network. The link is in the show. Well, the link will be in the show notes and also over on the website as well. They're already asking for specific intros to the episode. Oh, gosh. So, as usual, thank you for your time. And until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer, stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusedfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.